let's bust some myths. When it comes to Vikings, there's one image that seems impossible to shake. Picture a Viking, a huge bearded warrior with a horned helmet storming into battle, right? That's the classic image we've all seen. That image is everywhere. Movies, cartoons, sports logos, even Halloween costumes. It's become so iconic that it's hard to imagine Vikings any other way. But here's the truth. Vikings never wore horned helmets. Not in battle, not in ceremonies, not at all. Archaeologists have found plenty of Viking helmets, but not a single one had horns. The real helmets were practical, made for protection, not for show. Horns would have been a disaster in battle, impractical, easy to grab, and likely to snap off. Imagine trying to fight with giant handles on your head. So where did this myth come from? The horned helmet idea was actually invented in the 1800s for an opera, Wagner's Ring Cycle. It looked dramatic on stage and the image stuck in popular culture. Soon everyone knew Vikings wore horns, even though it was pure fiction. This is a classic case of history being rewritten by later generations, shaped more by imagination than by fact. The real Vikings were far more complex than the wild horned raiders we imagine. They had families, communities, and traditions. They were explorers, traders, farmers, lawmakers, a society with its own rules, customs, and a rich, vibrant culture that thrived for centuries. Their influence stretched from North America to the Middle East, leaving traces in languages, art, and even place names. Their myths about gods like Thor and Odin weren't just stories, they shaped how Vikings lived, made decisions, and understood their world. Much of what we think we know comes from their enemies, medieval monks and chroniclers, who had every reason to paint them as monsters and villains. So, let's peel back the layers of myth and legend, and look for the real people behind the stories. We'll explore their beliefs, their homes, their daily lives, and the challenges they faced in a harsh northern world. We'll see how their stories and traditions guided them through uncertainty, and how they adapted to survive. And we'll question who wrote their history, and why. Grab your gear, and get ready to challenge what you think you know. We're setting out to find the real Vikings, hidden behind a mask of myth, legend, and centuries of propaganda. The truth is out there, waiting to be uncovered. So let's begin our journey into the world of the Vikings. For Vikings, gods and humans shared the same world. A farmer might pray to Freya for a good harvest, a sailor would call on Thor for protection at sea. The gods weren't distant, they were active forces in daily life. Their myths were a spiritual GPS, guiding them through challenges. Odin's sacrifice for wisdom taught that knowledge comes at a cost. Runes weren't just writing, they were magic, carved for protection and luck. Jewelry and weapons bore symbols of gods and monsters, serving as amulets. Dying bravely in battle meant a chance at Valhalla, but most people went to other realms. These beliefs shaped their values, courage, honor, and a place for everyone in the cosmic order. The gods were companions, guides, and judges. Myth and daily life were inseparable. Their world was alive with meaning. The Vikings didn't write their own history. Their voices echo only faintly through time. Instead, their stories were passed down orally, told and retold by firesides on long winter nights, shaped by memory and imagination. Their runes, carved into stone or wood, were meant for short messages, memorials, or magical charms, not for detailed records or epic tales. So who wrote about them? Mostly their enemies, Christian monks in England, France, and Ireland, who saw the Vikings as a terrifying force from the sea. Imagine being a monk. One day you're quietly copying sacred manuscripts, the next you hear the distant thunder of oars and see longships on the horizon bringing chaos and fear. To the monks, the Vikings were terrifying pagans, and their chronicles are filled with horror, outrage, and deep bias. The famous Lindisfarne raid in 793 AD is described as a nightmare of plunder and slaughter, a moment that seemed to mark the end of the world for those who witnessed it. These accounts focus almost entirely on violence and destruction, ignoring the complexity of Viking society, family life, art, shipbuilding, and trade. It's like judging an entire society only by its police reports, missing the everyday lives and achievements of its people. This one-sided storytelling created the enduring stereotype of the savage Viking, a myth that still lingers today. Only centuries later in Iceland did Vikings' own stories, the sagas and eddas, get written down, blending history, legend, and the echoes of a lost world. To find the truth, we must read between the lines, compare these stories, and combine them with the discoveries of archaeology. The real Vikings are hidden beneath layers of fear, myth, and misunderstanding, waiting to be uncovered. We have to dig deeper, both in the earth and in the stories, to truly understand who the Vikings were. The violent raider is only a small part of the Viking story. While tales of battle and conquest have captured imaginations for centuries, the reality of Viking life was far more complex and fascinating. Most Vikings were farmers, herders, and fishermen surviving in a tough climate. Their daily lives revolved around tending crops, raising animals, and fishing the cold northern seas to feed their families and communities. Raiding was a seasonal activity for some, not a full-time job. When the weather allowed, a few would set sail for distant shores, but most stayed home, working the land and preparing for harsh winters. Their society was built on the farm, but their longships made them world-class traders and explorers. These ships were technological marvels, allowing them to travel vast distances across open seas and winding rivers. They traded from Canada to Constantinople, bringing back silver, silk, and spices. Viking merchants connected distant cultures, exchanging goods and ideas that shaped the medieval world. Archaeologists have found Arab coins in Sweden and Buddha statues on Viking islands. These discoveries reveal just how far Viking networks reached and how open they were to foreign influences. Vikings founded cities like Dublin and Kiev, settled Iceland, and even reached North America centuries before Columbus. Their journeys changed the map of Europe and beyond. They were colonists and city builders, not just destroyers. Viking settlements became thriving communities, leaving a lasting mark on the places they touched. Viking society had a sophisticated legal system. Local assemblies called things, settled disputes, and made laws. These gatherings were democratic, giving people a voice in their own governments. Justice and community were central, not chaos. Cooperation and fairness helped their society thrive in a challenging environment. Their achievements in trade, law, and exploration reveal a culture far richer than the savage stereotype. The Vikings were innovators, skilled navigators, and bridge builders between worlds. The real Vikings were builders, settlers, and innovators. Their legacy is everywhere, woven into the fabric of our modern world. Norse myths aren't just tales of gods smashing giants, they're filled with dark wisdom. The gods are flawed, mortal, and know they'll face doom at Ragnarok. Unlike religions promising paradise, Norse myths accept that the end is inevitable. The lesson? What matters is how you face fate, with courage and honor, not victory. Loki, the trickster, isn't pure evil. He's both helper and destroyer, showing that chaos and order are inseparable. These stories taught Vikings that life is struggle, wisdom has a price, and courage is the highest virtue. The myths didn't promise happy endings, but gave tools to endure harsh reality. The gods inspired, not saved. They prepared Vikings for a world of uncertainty. Their myths shaped a resilient, realistic worldview. They faced fate head-on. Forget the dirty Viking stereotype. Archaeology shows they were clean and stylish. Vikings used tweezers, razors, and combs and bathed regularly, more than many Europeans of their time. They loved bright clothes, embroidery and jewelry, silver brooches, gold arm rings, glass beads. Even common farmers wore ornaments. Looking good meant status and self-respect. Vikings left graffiti across Europe, from Istanbul to Scotland, boasting and joking. Proof they were real people, not just legends. Their beliefs were complex. Thor wasn't just a warrior but a protector of farmers and sailors. Odin was god of war, poetry, and magic. The same gods could bring destruction or wisdom. The Viking world was full of shades of gray, not black and white. Their culture was sophisticated, not savage. They balanced strength with style and wit. The real Vikings were modern in surprising ways. They left their mark everywhere. Viking women's roles were more complex than legend suggests. Sagas tell of shield maidens and valkyries, but real female warriors were rare, though one famous grave in Birka, Sweden, proves they existed. Most women held power at home, running farms and managing wealth while men were away. The lady of the house, was respected and wore keys as a symbol of authority. Viking law gave women rights. They could inherit property, divorce, and keep their wealth. Widows could own land and run farms. Women couldn't vote in assemblies, but their influence was real. They were essential partners, not passive figures. Viking society depended on their leadership at home. Their independence was remarkable for the time. Vikings were defined by movement and exploration. Their world stretched from North America to Russia, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Swedish Vikings, the Ruses, traveled rivers through Russia and Ukraine, founding dynasties and trading with Byzantium and the Islamic world. Their longships could be carried overland, connecting seas and rivers. Vikings raided and traded in Spain and Italy, and some became elite bodyguards, the Varangian Guard, in Constantinople. Their travels are recorded on rune stones in Scandinavia, marking where they died or fought. These stones are like ancient passports mapping their journeys. Vikings weren't isolated, they were global connectors. Their reach shaped the world and brought back new ideas and wealth. Their legacy is written in stone. The Viking story teaches us how history can be misunderstood. The horned helmet raider is a dramatic myth, crafted by enemies and fiction. The real Vikings were complex traders, farmers, lawmakers, explorers. To find the truth, we must question old stories and look at evidence from all sides. Read the monks' chronicles with skepticism, and the sagas as heroic literature, not fact. Most revealing are the artifacts, ships, graves, settlements, that Vikings left behind. Rediscovering their achievements gives us a fuller, more human story. Vikings were not just destroyers, but connectors and creators. Their society was structured, spiritual, and innovative. The search for the real Vikings is a search for a more honest history. The real story is far more fascinating than the legend.